Reba McEntire confronts Michael Bublé in his dressing room on The Voice. I run things around here. On the latest episode of The Voice on Tuesday, Oct. 8, the country star, who was off to a slow start in the blind auditions, confronted the Canadian crooner in his dressing room for a hilarious interaction. Walking into a pitch-black dressing room, Bublé, 49, was startled when he realized McEntire, 69, had been sitting there waiting for him as she flipped the light switch. "How did you get in here?" the home singer said. "Don't you worry about that. You and I are going to have a little talk, and I'm going to tell you how things work around here." McEntire responded in an ominous voice as she backed Bublé into the door. The 300-plus best Amazon Prime Day deals are up to 71% off on the final day, she added. "You think because you're the newbie, you sell millions of records, and you're a global superstar, you think you're something special?" With a concerned look on his face, he shook his head and responded, "No." McEntire leaned closer and said, "I run things around here. I'm going to keep my eye on you, okay?" In that moment, fellow coach Gwen Stefani walked in and asked if everything was okay in a cheerful manner. McEntire completely switched up and said, "Yeah, we're just talking about how much fun we're having on The Voice." "Right, Michael?" Reba McEntire makes Snoop Dogg cry after an unprecedented move on The Voice. Watch. "Yes, we're having so much fun," he said with a concerned look on his face. After Stephanie walked away, McEntire went back to being serious and threatened, "You better remember what I told you. I'll be watching you." This season, McEntire is returning for her third season in a row alongside returner Stephanie and first-time coaches Bublé and Snoop Dogg. On season 25, McEntire secured her first win with contestant Asher Haven. In a world where country music royalty meets the smooth sounds of jazz, something unforgettable was bound to happen. That's exactly what went down when Reba McEntire, the legendary queen of country, crossed paths with crooner Michael Bublé backstage at The Voice. Sparks flew, but not the romantic kind, the kind you see when two powerhouses share the same space and a difference of opinion. It was just another glamorous night on set. The glittering stage, the buzz of the audience, and the tension that always seems to hang in the air when the stakes are high on a talent show. This particular season had been heating up, and The Voice producers were thrilled with their star-studded panel. Reba McEntire, known for her down-to-earth charm and undeniable presence, had taken her seat as a judge earlier in the season. Her wisdom, wit, and authenticity instantly made her a fan favorite. Her sharp ear for talent and country grit was exactly what the show needed. On the other side of the stage sat Michael Bublé, guest mentor for Team Blake. His smooth voice and charismatic, easygoing demeanor had won over both audiences and contestants alike. With his reputation as the king of Christmas and a voice that could melt the hardest of hearts, Bublé was a force to be reckoned with, even in the cutthroat world of The Voice. For the most part, everything had been going smoothly until that fateful night in his dressing room. Rumors had been swirling about tension between the two stars behind the scenes. Some said it was inevitable. When you have that much talent in one room, there's bound to be friction. But no one expected what was about to unfold. It was supposed to be a quiet moment before the show went live, a time for Michael to center himself, perhaps practice a few scales, and mentally prepare for the night's performances. He wasn't expecting a knock on his door, and certainly not the fiery confrontation that followed. Michael, Reba's unmistakable southern drawl cut through the muffled noises of the hallway as she rapped firmly on his dressing room door. She didn't wait for a reply. Pushing the door open with the confidence of someone who has commanded stages across the world, Reba stepped into the room, her presence as big as her hair in the 90s. Michael looked up from his spot on the couch, caught off guard by the unannounced visit. "Reba?" he asked, his brows knitting together in confusion. "What's going on?" Without missing a beat, Reba squared her shoulders, her eyes narrowing with determination. "We need to talk, Michael," she said, her voice firm yet still dripping with her characteristic warmth. "I've been hearing some things, and I want to set the record straight." Bublé, ever the gentleman, stood up, trying to make light of the situation. Whoa. Take it easy, Reba. Is this about that Christmas joke I made last week? You know I can't resist." "It's not about that," Reba interrupted, her tone unwavering. "It's about who runs things around here. I want to make sure we're on the same page." For a moment, the room fell silent. Michael, still trying to figure out where this was going, gave her a quizzical look. "Wait, you think I'm trying to take over The Voice?" he asked, half laughing but also sensing the seriousness in her words. Reba crossed her arms, her fiery red hair catching the light as she tilted her head slightly. "Let's just say I've heard through the grapevine that you might be thinking about making some changes. Well, I'm here to remind you that this is my house. I run things around here." Michael's face softened into a grin, his hands raised in surrender. "Whoa, hold on now. You think I'm gunning for the crown? Reba, come on. You know this is Blake's territory. I'm just here as a guest, doing my thing for the week. There's no way I'd step on your toes, especially not in cowboy boots." But Reba wasn't letting him off that easy. She took a step closer, her eyes still locked on his. "Listen, Michael, I've been in this industry a long time, and I've seen how people operate. You might be Mr. Christmas, but don't think for a second that I don't know how things work in Hollywood. I've fought for everything I've earned, and I won't let anyone try to push me out." Michael blinked, genuinely taken aback by the intensity of her words. "Reba, I think you got this all wrong," he said, his tone softening. "I respect you, everyone respects you. I'm not here to take anything from you. I'm just here to help these kids sing their hearts out. You're the queen. Everyone knows that." For a moment, Reba stood there, weighing his words. Her posture relaxed, but her gaze didn't waver. She knew the game. She'd been in the business long enough to know when someone was playing her. But Michael's sincerity was hard to deny. "You better believe I'm the queen," she finally said, a sly smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "And don't you forget it." Michael, always quick with a joke, let out a relieved laugh. "Wouldn't dream of it," he said, placing a hand over his heart. "I swear, I'm just here for the smooth jazz. No hostile takeovers, I promise." Reba studied him for another second before letting out a chuckle of her own. "Good," she said, turning toward the door. But before she walked out, she shot him one last look over her shoulder. "Just remember, if you want to stick around here, you gotta follow the rules." Michael nodded vigorously. "Of course. I'll be the best behaved crooner you've ever seen." With that, Reba finally let down her guard. The playful glint returned to her eyes as she walked out of the room, leaving Michael to shake his head with a bemused smile. He had just survived a showdown with Reba McEntire and lived to tell the tale. As she disappeared down the hallway, Michael sat back down on his couch, shaking his head with admiration. "Now that's a woman who knows how to run a show," he muttered to himself, still smiling. And that's the thing about Reba McEntire. Whether on stage or off, she commands respect. Even in the world of The Voice, where divas and divos are aplenty, there's only one queen, and everyone knows exactly who she is. Reba studied him for another second before letting out a chuckle of her own. "Good," she said, turning toward the door. But before she walked out, she shot him one last look over her shoulder. "Just remember, if you want to stick around here, you gotta follow the rules." Michael nodded vigorously. "Of course. I'll be the best behaved crooner you've ever seen." With that, Reba finally let down her guard. The playful glint returned to her eyes as she walked out of the room, leaving Michael to shake his head with a bemused smile. He had just survived a showdown with Reba McEntire and lived to tell the tale. As she disappeared down the hallway, Michael sat back down on his couch, shaking his head with admiration. "Now that's a woman who knows how to run a show," he muttered to himself, still smiling. And that's the thing about Reba McEntire. Whether on stage or off, she commands respect, even in the world of The Voice.